The Trump administration slamming reporting from CNN and the New York Times, casting doubt on the effectiveness of the U.S. strike on 3 key Iranian nuclear facilities. CNN reporting an early...
The Trump administration fires back at mainstream media, claims that recent U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites fell flat. With CNN and the New York Times pushing doubt, President Trump and allies claim overwhelming success and reveal explosive new intelligence. Meanwhile, at NATO, Trump secures a massive spending win amidst playful clashes with allies. Let's break this down together.
U.S. intel assessment suggests the strikes did not destroy the nuclear sites, citing descriptions provided by, quote, people familiar with the assessment. CNN omitting from its initial report that these conclusions were deemed, quote, low confidence.
Media rushed to discredit the strike without revealing that initial assessments were uncertain and preliminary. The selective reporting sows doubt on key national security successes.
The New York Times, citing, quote, officials familiar with the findings, reporting the initial damage assessment suggests President Trump's claim that the nuclear facilities were obliterated is an overstatement, and saying much of the stockpile of enriched uranium was moved to another location prior to the strike. The Times, too, failing to reveal in its initial report that these conclusions were deemed, quote, low confidence. President Trump on Wednesday from the NATO summit in the Netherlands saying the papers have it wrong, citing new information that supports the administration's view that key sites were in fact destroyed.
Since then, we've collected additional intelligence. We've also spoken to people who have seen the site, and the site is obliterated. And we think everything nuclear is down there. They didn't take it out. We think we hit them so hard and so fast they didn't get to move. And if you knew about that material, it's very hard and very dangerous to move.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio from The Hague providing more detail on the damage each facility sustained.
So in Esfahan, there was this conversion site, which is how you turn this metal into something that's useful. That's wiped out. And so they can't do that today. Beyond that, all of the support structures around it as well. In Natanz, which is also an underground facility, basically the Israelis have put a lot of damage on it. And then the United States went in with 2 additional heavy munitions that penetrated into the ground and did more damage. The hard one, the one that was really difficult, is Fordo, because it's buried underneath a mountain. There's no doubt in our minds it's very significant, substantial, lasting damage was done to their program.
U.S. and allied officials confidently refute media skepticism, emphasizing that tough military operations delivered irreversible damage to Iran's nuclear ambitions.
We will learn more and more about it, but the baseline is real damage was done. Of that, we're very confident. We dropped 12 of these things into these holes. I mean, it's not like we just did a couple and see how it went.
The CIA, too, releasing a statement on Wednesday afternoon, quote, CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged. Key Iranian nuclear facilities were destroyed and would have to be rebuilt over the course of years. The International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, a nuclear watchdog tasked with monitoring Iran's nuclear program, supporting the administration's assessment. The organization's director general saying in a statement, quote, during these attacks, we have seen extensive damage at several nuclear sites in Iran, including its uranium conversion and enrichment facilities. The Israeli Atomic Energy Commission, concluding the U.S. strikes in combination with the Israeli strikes, quote, set back Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons by many years. And a spokesman for the Iranian Foreign Ministry on Wednesday saying, quote, our nuclear installations have been badly damaged. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth on Wednesday providing additional context to the CNN and New York Times reporting and putting the leakers on notice.
When you actually look at the report, by the way, it was a top secret report, it was preliminary, it was low confidence. All right, so this is you make assessments based on what you know.
They don't. As I said, it could be very devastating, very serious.
Moderate to severe, and we believe far more likely severe and obliterated. We're doing a leak investigation with the FBI right now because this information is for internal purposes, battle damage assessments, and CNN and others are trying to spin it to make the president look bad when this was an overwhelming success.
As for future plans to reach a new nuclear deal, President Trump saying Wednesday it's not necessary.
They fought, the war's done, and, you know, I could get a statement that they're not going to go nuclear. We're probably going to ask for that, but they're not going to be doing it. But they're not going to be doing it anyway. They've had it. They've had it. Now, maybe someday in the future we'll want that. But I've asked Marco, do you want to draw, I just asked him the question as we were walking on the stage, do you want to draw up a little agreement for them to sign? Because I think we can get them to sign it. I don't think it's necessary.
On Wednesday, the NATO summit concluding at The Hague, the meeting between member nations striking a particularly collegial mood, in contrast to the typical media portrayal of President Trump as a bully and unreliable ally to the U.S.'s longstanding partners. President Trump securing a key victory at the summit, with NATO's allies agreeing to boost defense spending targets to 5% of their respective GDPs, more than doubling the longstanding benchmark of 2%. President Trump touting the win at a NATO press conference.
And following my election last November, almost all have accelerated plans to reach the 2%, 3%, 4%, and then ultimately, very quickly, 5%. When the allies reach this number, it will add more than $1 trillion a year to our common defense. And this is a monumental win for the United States, because we were carrying much more than our fair share. It was quite unfair, actually.
President Trump and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte appearing to really hit it off throughout the summit. This moment between Mr. Trump and Mr. Rutte, who is the former Prime Minister of the Netherlands, discussing the recent ceasefire deal with Israel and Iran, quickly going viral.
They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes, then it's easier to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
The unusual flattery and banter between Trump and NATO's Secretary General showcases Trump's unorthodox diplomacy, flipping the usual narrative of him as the unreliable ally.
President Trump asked about that comment later in the day.
Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, who is your friend, he called you daddy earlier. Do you regard your NATO allies as kind of children?
No, he likes me. I think he likes me. If he doesn't, I'll let you know. I'll come back and I'll hit him hard, okay? No? He did it very affectionately. Daddy, you're my daddy.
Do you regard your NATO allies, though, as kind of like children, and they're obviously listening to you and they're spending more, and you're obviously appreciative of that, but do you hope that actually they're going to be able to defend themselves, defend Europe on their own?
I think they need help a little bit at the beginning, and I think they'll be able to, and I think they're going to remember this day, and this is a big day for NATO.
Secretary General Rutte also asked on Wednesday about his attitude toward President Trump.
The language that you have used when talking to Donald Trump has been notable because of its flattery. Today you called him daddy, and you sent a text message to him that was gushing with praise. Is this the way that you feel you have to act when doing business with the US president, through flattery and praise?
When he is doing stuff which is forcing us to, for example, when it comes to making more investments. I mean, would you ever think that this would be the result of this summit if he would not have been re-elected president? So doesn't he deserve some praise? And when it comes to Iran, the fact that he took this decisive action, very targeted, to make sure that Iran would not be able to get its hands on a nuclear capability, I think he deserves all the praise.
This segment peels back the smoke and mirrors between media narratives and administration claims. Despite scoffing headlines, top officials, allied watchdogs, and the CIA confirm major blows to Iran's nuclear program. Coupled with Trump's groundbreaking NATO deal pushing allies to double defense spending commitments, this period marks a power play on multiple fronts. Which side will you trust? Drop your take below and stay tuned for incisive updates.